To you live. We're coming to you live. That's right. From the High Definition Studios here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. You know, I've been saying that. I've been saying that for a while. And my wife used to make fun of me. She used to say, your studios are not high definition. I said, well, they don't know that. Let me just play along here. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to our live audience as well as our podcast audience. Man, this is the beginning of the work week. And I have a short work week this week, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You heard it here first. CL is going to get away from the microphone and get away from the office and get away from the house and just get away from the kids, the dog, everything. And Charity and I are just disappearing. Nobody will know where we are except Greg Smith. So in case of an emergency, contact him. But we are glad to be starting the week out on such a high note. I'm super relaxed because I've got a friend that I get to converse with tonight. And most of the time it is like that, having a conversation with a friend. But this friend, the way we became friends is interesting. And for sure, I will have to discuss that later on in the show. But yeah, I'm telling you, sometimes the strangest friendships are forged with the strangest ways. And so this gentleman that's my friend tonight, he's a father, married, father of three, married for 23 years. He's got two podcasts. You know, I thought I was a glutton for punishment with one. He's got one podcast called A Funny Science Fiction Podcast and Focused on Forward. And this came off of it. The reason why he put Focused on Forward is this came from his own health issues and his daughter's health issues in 2019. He loves to spend time talking with people and sharing stories, and he's an avid Star Wars nerd. So I really got to ask him what if he's a Star Trek nerd too, because I'm a Trekkie. At 34, he had a heart procedure to correct severe atrial fibrillation, and he's been okay since. But this is where the saying "focused on forward" came into life. And so after he left the hospital in 2019, this became a mantra. And you know, that's one of the things about our show. Good evening, folks. Saying hello on our social media. But that is one of the things about our show, is that we don't necessarily need people on here that are trying to sell Scentsy or, you know, Kirby vacuum cleaners. Though that has its place, just not here. I want to have people on the show that have had an impact, and then they use that impact to impact others. And Tim's situation in his life caused him to realize that he had to give voice now to others. That's kind of like the way this show materialized. We were not doing a podcast. We were doing 80 events a year, ladies and gentlemen, almost 400,000 people. And I said, man, if I'm going to do a podcast, I don't want it to be all about me. I want to hear what other people are doing and the impacts that they are making. So I am blessed to have in the virtual studios all the way from Michigan. He's ready to go jump in Lake Michigan. My friend and my homie, Mr. Tim Beisiegel.
What's up, CL? How you doing, man?
Did I get your last name right, or did I butcher it?
You nailed it. You did it. You got it.
Thank you, man. I you know, oftentimes, if I had to pay my guests for how many times I butchered their last name.
Oh, man, we'd all be broke.
Oh, man, we'd all be broke, man. So, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. And really, this is just going to be such a great show. You guys are going to enjoy this format. Tim and I talked about this some time ago, and it's going to be a different format. It's going to be kind of an open air kind of format. And I'm excited about it because a whole lot less show prep when you get to interview a friend. So, Tim, what I would like to do, what we do want to get out of the way and just put out there for all of our listeners, because I want them to go and check out your podcast and download and all that. We'll probably have to do a follow-up show on podcasting in general. But how can people find you? How can they contact you? What's your contact information?
Well, first, I want to talk about my Kirby vacuums. Is that okay?
See, I knew it. See, this is why we do the pre-interviews, folks.
No, so if you're interested in looking into my shows, I have two. The first one's called Focused on Forward, and you can find that on YouTube, and you can also find that on your favorite audio podcast destination. The only one that neither of my podcasts are on, I believe, is Stitcher. because currently I'm hosting on Anchor, and Anchor and Stitcher are like Jets and the Sharks. They are not BFFs. They do not like each other. And yeah, there's a whole dance off fight going on over there with them. But yeah, I'm on iHeart, I'm on Pandora, I'm on, Apple, Google, Spotify, you name it, it's out there. And then also my second one is called Funny Science Fiction. It's a completely different lane and topic set than Focused on Forward. On Focused on Forward, we talk about how people have overcome trials and obstacles in their life and what they're doing to move forward and be with positivity. On Funny Science Fiction, it's just that we talk about why science fiction is funny. We talk to people in the sci-fi world, actors, directors, writers, etc., and we talk about all things nerdy. And but you can find that again on YouTube and your favorite audio podcast destination.
Man, I tell you what, doesn't he got a cool voice too, man? Especially for a guy from Michigan. I mean, those folks up in Michigan, they got a different mojo about them anyway. So,
well, none of us can say water properly. We all say it with a D.
Yeah,
water.
One of the things that I've has endeared me to what you do is because we're colleagues. We're both in the same space. Mm-hmm. And, we have a mutual respect and understanding for this space. I wish I had started 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
To be a multimillionaire right now. But the podcasting space is truly an exploding space.
Very much so.
Man, the numbers are just going through the roof. So before we get into all the nitty gritty and stuff that we're going to do tonight, I would just love for you to give kind of like an introduction to yourself.
Sure.
Give people a little background about my friend Tim Beisiegel.
So I'm a 6'3" chubby white guy from Michigan who loves his wife dearly and loves his children. And I love living out in the country. I love my peace and my quiet. And I couldn't be happier about where I live and what I do. And so during the day, my dad and I run a small sign shop out of a town called Newaygo, Michigan. And at night, I don the headphones to become the podcast guy. Anyway, it's like my superhero alter ego. I'm the podcast guy. And so anyway, but yeah, that's me. I grew up, I've always lived in Michigan. I was born in Lansing. I lived always pretty much on the west side of the state. The first couple of years I was alive and not really knowing what was going on in the world. Lived over by the Lansing, Michigan area. And ever since then, I've lived on Michigan's west coast over by Lake Michigan. Let's see, when I was in my 30s, I had a bit of a heart issue, something called atrial fibrillation. And I had a pretty severe case of it. A lot of people have atrial fibrillation, and it's something that you can live with. Unfortunately, my situation was it was going off 15 to 20 times a day, and I would be in an AFib status where your heart beats kind of out of rhythm. So my heart was like shaking in my chest like this for about 20 to 30 minutes at a time, 15 to 20 times a day. And so I had to go and have a procedure done, and it helped. I'm better. I got better. And but the only difference is that it really affected my stamina. So, my wife and I, during that time, we started saying, hey, well, we'll just focus on moving forward. That's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on moving forward. And that's when that saying kind of came into play. We're going to focus on moving forward.
Right.
And then 2019 came. My daughter got sick. We thought she had the flu. We took her to the hospital. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, there's DeVos Children's Hospital, which is in the top 5 in the nation for children's hospitals. I think it's number 3, actually. Excuse me. And we walked in, and the doctor said, I don't know what she has, but it's not the flu. And I went, okay. And came back a few minutes later, and he says, well, we can take MS off the table. And multiple sclerosis. I'm like, okay. And when did that go on the table?
Right.
That was kind of unnerving. And then he came back to tell us that she has a condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks the central nervous system.
Oh my.
So we ended up spending 97 days in the hospital, 33 of which were in the ICU. We nearly lost her twice during that time. And when we came out, of the hospital with her in 2019, we had to figure out what our new normal was, right, and how we were going to move forward with life. And that's when Focused on Forward was not just a saying. Now it needed to be something that we needed to do, not just for her and I, but also for our daughter as well. Mm-hmm. You know, how we were going to focus on moving her forward through life and helping her around and through this obstacle that life had placed in front of her.
Wow. And how is she? I mean, how are things now?
She's doing good. She's 14. She was 12 when we went into the hospital. She's 14 now. The biggest problem that she's going to have is that this is an autoimmune disease. She's going to have it for the rest of her life.
Right.
So there is no cure for it. It's hers. It's like a family heirloom. It's never going to go away. Mm-hmm. But the biggest problem that we have with that is that so we have to be very careful because of COVID. We don't want her to get infected. We have to be a little more stringent than maybe most families have to be with, you know, the pandemic. And the other part of that is that because during her stay in the hospital, one of the procedures that she had to have done, she had to have an emergency drainage of one of her lungs, and that damaged half of one. She's running on about 1.5 lungs right now.
Really? And
so, although she is not immunocompromised, if she were to get COVID because of her limited lung capacity, mm-hmm. It could be catastrophic. Right. So we really have to pay attention to what's going on, where, how, and why.
I understand. Wow. Well, she remains, and you guys remain in our prayers. And
I thank you.
This is probably the best time as any. Let me just tell you guys, he told you that his daughter, and she was in the hospital there at that children's hospital in 2019, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so here's how, and you guys know me being Mr. Transparent. Here's how Tim and I got to know one another. Tim and I are part of a podcast group, the Podcast Collab Club and Podcast Collab Group, which is, you know, several, 15, 16,000 podcasters. And so we are all networking and collaborating and reaching out to one another and giving each other virtual business cards and all that. And everything's working out great. Well, Tim and I connected through that club or that group. And now we're like, okay, we're going to set up a time for us to do a pre-interview and talk and get to know one another. And I'm going to be on Tim's show and he's going to be on mine, blah, blah, blah. Well, Tim asked me a question and he just said, hey, how do you know this certain person? I see she's a mutual friend. And I said, I'm not quite sure how I know them. I've got thousands of friends. You know, I'm a global icon. Everybody knows CL King. and so, and so I'm like, okay, I don't really know. And that's a shame, but you know, you can probably only call 10 to 15 people on your friends list to help you if you got a flat tire. Is that not true, Tim? Probably.
Maybe less.
Maybe less. Yeah. I would call Greg and that'd be the end of my list.
You gotta call AAA first.
Right. So I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not sure. And he asked another follow-up question. And instead of I did go and look and see how I knew this person that we have as a mutual friend, but nothing was going on. And so I was just like, I don't know how I know her. I don't even know how she became my friend. I just know that we are. And so he said something that they were in a similar situation. And he's something about a hospital or something like that. And instead of me asking another question or whatever I went into immediate CIA shutdown mode. You know how us Marines are, you know what I mean? I just went absolutely like, okay, this dude is trying to find this woman and take her in the backwoods and cut her up into a million pieces. So I reached out to this lady and I'm like, there's this guy asking me about you. I don't know nothing about him. I don't know how I even know you. And I don't know how he knows you. He may be on your street. You need to watch out. And so she was like, oh no, he's perfect. Because Tim had told me a little bit about this lady's story. And I'm just like, why are you telling me about her story? Well, I totally, ladies and gentlemen, when I say I had to eat crow, I had to eat several crows because I was totally off base. Tim and this lady that we have as a mutual friend, they were in the children's hospital together. And this lady was kind of like helping Tim and his family along during their stay. And I had blown this completely out of proportion. I mean, I didn't want nothing to do with Tim. I didn't want to be on his show. I was calling the FBI. And then, and I mean, this is our first, this is our first encounter. We have a major falling out. And here I am, this it's terrible. I was so embarrassed. So I had to put my hat in my hand and I said, listen, man, after further analyses.
I told my wife after that first interaction, I'm like, can you believe this guy? I'm like, I put a post out there on Facebook. I'm like, hey, looking for guests. And he reached out to me. And then all of a sudden, this is what he's doing. Are you kidding me? And then when you came back, I'm like, all right, baby, you are never going to believe this.
But what could have happened is I could have just said, well, whatever, and let it be water under the bridge. There's thousands of other people. But one thing that I recognized was that I was wrong. Now this might be a teachable moment for some of y'all, but I was wrong, and I knew I was wrong, and I never had to admit to Tim that I was wrong, and I didn't need to be on his show. But it was more important to me that he knew that I had pegged him wrong and I was totally off base than that I got to be on the show. And so I circled back around and said, Shayna says it's true. Is that your wife, brother?
Yeah, it is.
So I circled back around. Well, look, Shayna, I told my wife too. I told her, babe, because Marines from time to time can have a bit of a paranoid short fuse. That's just I don't know what it is. But I went back and I told her, babe, you won't believe what I did. I absolutely told this dude off on Facebook, and I was totally wrong. He's got such a great story. The lady that you were asking me about, she said, oh no, I want my story known all over the world. Because I'm like, this guy's telling me your story and I don't know nothing about you. Why is he telling me? It's just like, yeah, my son's a miracle and blah, blah, blah. And
he is,
like,
actually.
What an absolute horse's rear end that I look like right now. And so when I circled back to him, I said, listen, bro, I am so sorry. I feel like a fool. Here's what happened. And I said, oh, no problem. So then we set up an actual, do you want to try this virtual, video conference again and like actually talk to one another? I said, yeah.
There was no way I was doing it over text again. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to try the face-to-face route and see how well that goes. Cause the texting back and forth had not proved fruitful thus far.
That did not get us. We didn't gain any altitude off of texting.
No, we would have hit the tree dead on.
And now look, the shirt that I'm wearing, Tim works in merchandise. He's a graphics designer. And we are business partners now. I mean, look at my cup, my Impact Life 24/7, our merch link on my website, clkingspeaker.com. Tim has helped us with all that. Our new logo and icon, Tim created all this. You guys got to go to him for all of your icon and logo needs. And
thank you.
I'm just like, dude. See, that's what's supposed to happen when you're going to be good friends with somebody. You got to get into a fight first, So that's how Tim and I got together, and I couldn't be more pleased with our friendship. And I feel like in this time, y'all, that God, I ain't trying to get spiritual on y'all, but y'all know I'm a man of faith, even though I fuss out people in text. I feel like God is expediting friendships and relationships because life is so fleeting, y'all. In one instant, everything can change for you. And so, Tim and I were just talking the other day. I was screwing a shelf up in the bathroom for my wife, and he was cooking a porterhouse on the grill. I'm like, yeah, man, we're going to work over the show. And now we're talking like we've been knowing each other for 20 years. And that's because I do feel like we got to understand the value of friendship, man. So I value your friendship. I apologize publicly to our global audience. I humble myself and say, man,
we're good.
And
We're good.
Greg just said I ordered some stuff. Well, Greg, you need to order some more, brother. Don't come to me for no money. So anyway, here we are, Impacting Life 24/7 with your host CL King, with my friend and guest Tim Beisiegel. And
got it again. There you go.
He is.
You're 2 for 2.
Yeah, I know, brother. You should have seen how I said Colonel Madragon. Oh Lord, I really ruined that one. But Tim, the two shows that you have, the two shows are pretty amazing. But the one that I want to talk about first is we're going to go in reverse. The sci-fi show, the funny science fiction show. And how did that get born? What birthed that show?
Okay, so the guy who started our Facebook group, and that's where this all began. He's a short story writer, and he actually he wrote this book. This is one of the books this is the book that we give away on our show, so I'll prop it up here. It's called Custodians of the Cosmos, and it's written by Drayton Allen. So Drayton started our Facebook group because he wrote this book, and he's written some very cool, humorous sci-fi books. So the intent of this book, Custodian of the Cosmos, was that it's written around a gentleman who wanted to become a Star Trek officer, but he failed the officer's exam. And so he decided that the only way he was going to get into Starfleet was that he needed to become a custodian. So he joins as a custodian on the Starfleet, and the whole story is about how he has boldly gone to clean up after those who boldly just went. So yeah, it's a pretty cool book. I enjoy it very much. But he got some advice to start, instead of marketing the book, market the genre. So he started a Facebook group, and that, by the way, is called Funny Science Fiction. And so Funny Science Fiction group, right now we're at, I think, about 117,000 members. It's a very large Facebook group. I'm one of the admins on the group. And I became an admin because I was friends with one of his sons. And I had never met him. He lives on one side of the state. I live on the other. We're both from Michigan. He lives over by Detroit. I live over by Lake Michigan. But anywho, so him and I started talking one night, and he said, well, hey, you're already a member of the group. Would you mind helping me out some? And he made me an admin on the page. And that was about a year ago. Since I've been helping, we've gone from 40,000 members in the group to 117,000. Wow. So we've had an explosive growth over the last year. And I was already doing the other podcast Focused on Forward, and I interviewed his other son, Josh, who had some family issues with his youngest daughter, some health issues. And after listening to the podcast I did with his son, he says, why don't we start a podcast on the page? And so it started off with Drayton, Josh, and myself being the 3 hosts of the show. Right now, it's Drayton has backed off because he has been writing some books, and book writing, I think, is his biggest love. And so he doesn't mind being on the show, but I think he likes being in the background. Right. And but he's been writing a book, and he's actually trying to get that finished up right now. I'm one of his beta readers, so I'm kind of excited to see what the next book is going to be about and all that. So I'm get to see it here shortly. And then Josh also had to back off a little bit because his daughter was having some more health issues, and there was some home issues, and COVID killed his daytime job. So like dead on arrival killed it. So he had to figure out something else to do for work. And so he didn't have the extra time that he had at one point. So his brother, Nick, who was doing all our editing and recording in the background, stepped up to the mic, and we have a new co-host. Her name is Kathleen. And so that's what we do. We sit down with the 3 of us, and we talk with people in the sci-fi world.
Well, just to know, I know you say that you're more of a Star Wars guy. Is that your?
Oh, that'd be very accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If I had to choose between the two, believe it or not, I would choose Star Trek, the old one with Captain Kirk. I used to watch those, and watching them now, all these years later, how corny they truly really were.
Oh, they're campy and they're corny, but they're still fun.
Yeah. But I'm just like, okay, the ship gets fired on, and the screen's vibrating, and they're falling, and my wife would look at me and says, "Are you really watching that?" I said, "Babe, this is really still where it's at, man. There's still a whole underworld of Trek."
Oh, heavy.
Yeah,
Trekkies are everywhere.
So so when you are interviewing people, it's not just like You guys have been blessed to interview some pretty heavy hitters in this arena, huh?
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun. We've so speaking of Star Trek, one of the people that we've been able to interview, uh, we've had two really nice Star Trek interviews. We're only 27 episodes in on this. It's a fairly new show, but we've been very lucky, very fortunate thus far in who we've been able to interview. We were able to bring in Dayton Ward, who's a New York Times bestselling author for the Star Trek Extended Universe, and had an awesome chat with him. Dayton was a really cool guy. He also does some work on their for their TV shows as like a continuity officer to help kind of make sure everything's going in the right direction on the shows. And then we just interviewed a woman by the name of Robin Curtis, and this episode will get aired in a few weeks here. Robin Curtis was in Star Trek 3 and 4. She played Lieutenant Savak, the female Vulcan.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just interviewed her, and she is absolutely as sweet as can be, just as adorable person as you could imagine. But we had a wonderful, wonderful conversation with her. So yeah, that's been our Star Trek experience thus far. We've talked to people who are big in the tabletop gaming arena. James M. Ward, who worked under Gary Gygax developing Dungeons and Dragons. We've talked with Dan Povenmire, who's the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb, and and some others. So
yeah, I think you got the guy from Superman too, right?
Oh yeah. How could I forget? Jack O'Halloran, who played Non, Superman 1 and 2, the big bearded mute brute from Krypton. And it's really cool to hear his backstory. Jack may be an older gentleman, but there is no way on this God's green earth that I'd ever upset that man.
Oh, really?
Because not only could he punch a hole in you, but he's got some mob ties from back in the day. That's no joke.
Really?
Oh yeah, he talks openly about it, about how he grew up being a numbers runner for the mob in Philly, and how, because he was a heavyweight boxing champion of California. He beat Ken Norton Sr. He was supposed to a couple different times fight Muhammad Ali.
Really?
But between the Nation of Islam and the mob, they couldn't get the dollars right. Somebody was always unhappy.
Somebody was not pleased with the bottom line, right?
Somebody wanted more money somewhere, somehow. And he talks about that in our interview. It's a really cool show. But he also talks about how he chose to play Non and why Non was a mute, and how he played it and everything. It's a really cool story. It adds a whole different depth to that character that if you go back and you watch Superman 1 and 2, again, it's one of those things where it's like, you can't believe how campy it is. But
right,
there was a lot of groundbreaking things that they did in those movies that were not done before then. So,
yeah. And God rest Christopher Reeve's soul. But, we all grew up watching those.
Oh, yeah.
And, Richard Pryor and that I forget which one that was. But
that was 3, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it, I'll just be honest with you, man, relative to movies just in general, that the movies of that era and a little bit before, just kind of like the music of that era, it's like you can go back, you can play something from Toto, you can play Africa from Toto, everybody in the room is going to be vibing to it.
Oh yeah.
And that just was such trend-setting movies and thought processes, folks thinking out of the box, man. It just that's really, really cool that you've been able to, with your funny science fiction. Now, are you also a Marvel guy?
I am.
And who's your favorite character?
Wolverine.
I wonder why.
Actually, it has nothing to do with being in the state of Michigan. I've always liked Wolverine's sarcasm. Oh, really? I'm a highly sarcastic person, and I know that. And I don't see, I don't have the Facebook screen open, but I'm pretty sure my wife is typing yes, he is. He's annoying, something along those lines. She deserves a medal for sainthood, I tell you. I love her dearly, and I'm not just saying that because she has to come pick me up in a little bit. Right.
He doesn't want to walk home.
No, I don't. No, but I've always loved Wolverine. I loved his regenerative powers. I love the fact that he could get injured and he could heal himself. And I love the fact that he was, had been living forever and he'd seen all these things throughout history. And but I don't know. I just thought he was really cool.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you guys for tuning in Impacting Life 24/7. I'm on with my friend Tim Beisiegel, and he is from
3 for 3.
Where are you at exactly in Michigan?
So I'm just a little north of Grand Rapids, Michigan, a little town called Newaygo. Michigan. Yeah. See, in Michigan, we get to use this thing that nobody else gets to use. Our hand is a map. I live right about here.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and Greg was talking about those flip phones. Greg, as Greg and I have traveled so far and so many miles together, Greg used to have this flip phone that, and he just recently got rid of it. But when I would get held up at an event by somebody wanting to talk to me too long or whatever, he would come and flip that phone open and say, "Mr. King, you got a call." And so Greg says in the comments that flip phones came from Star Trek. So
they did. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
He wanted to hang on to it. So Tim, real quick, we're going to do a quick commercial. This is the first time I'm getting to do it live. So
get it.
Yeah, let's see if it works, man. And if not, then we'll know. I can put that in my training on what not to do.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Let's see if it works, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to hear a word about our sponsors. They say if you want to go fast, then go alone. But if you want to go far, then you've got to go together. Impacting Life 24/7 is an international podcast which is downloaded in over 22 U.S. states as well as 10 different countries around the world. One of our gold sponsors, which helps make this happen, is Michelle Perry. She is the founder of the Successful Diligence LLC and host of the Successful Diligence podcast, and she's a best-selling author of The Pebble in My Shoe. You can connect with Michelle and get a copy of her book at successfuldiligence.com. Adrienne Barker is a gold sponsor. She is the host of the Adrienne Barker Speaks podcast. She is a life coach and a CEO of Professional Global Etiquette. Her goal is to help people unearth the greatness that's within them. Connect with her at professionalglobaletiquette.com. Our platinum sponsors include Gregory Smith. He is the author of 100 Simple Ways How to Manage a Property and Evidence Room. Get your copy today of his book by reaching out to Gregory Smith on Facebook or email him at smithg1963@yahoo.com. Greg is a humanitarian at heart. Often Greg will be found helping distribute food in his local community, and he logs thousands of hours volunteering every year. Mr. Mike Black from New Bern, North Carolina is a platinum sponsor. Mike helps men throughout Eastern Carolina lead a life of faith. He is a compassionate leader in his church. He is a devoted husband and father to his daughter who just recently graduated from Army boot camp. Dr. Nate Dunlap Jr. is executive director of the PRF Institute, the author of What's Next? Preparing for Eternity, and he's the author of Don't Leave Me Like This, Inspiration to Leave a Legacy. As a 501c3 nonprofit organization, the PRF Institute is blessed to be that premier stewardship-based teaching ministry that truly responds to the needs of families and communities around the country. You can find Dr. Dunlap and his amazing team at prfinstitute.org. If you would like to become a sponsor of Impacting Life 24/7, which is heard in 22 states and 10 countries, go to clkingspeaker.com. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to Impacting Life 24/7. It only took me 66 takes to get that 2-minute spot together.
Like, wow, 66. I'd still be trying it.
Bro, if it's live, I can do it with the first time through. But anytime that's why I worry about pre-recording.
No, even just okay, so even just doing a TikTok video, which is only 60 seconds, which every episode that I do for either funny science fiction or focused on forward, I have a small video that I put together as like almost like a slideshow of pictures of the guest and so like a informational card about the show and all that kind of stuff. Just doing that, I usually end up like 15 to 20 takes. Oh, I don't like how I said that. Oh, the problem is that anytime you do anything voice related, whether you're a voice actor, which I have a whole newfound respect for voice actors after having started funny science fiction, I'll tell you what, or you're doing something like this, you get used to a certain sound quality. Mm-hmm. and how you think your voice should sound and how you think you should say something,
Right.
because you want that to be that information, that message to be relayed in the clearest, easiest way possible.
Right.
And then when you don't hear that, you're like, oh, well, that's just stupid. We're going to redo that and we're going to empty. So there I am talking to my phone for 20 minutes for a 30-second clip.
Right. Yeah. That one wore us out. But we're very, very thankful for our sponsors, and the way a person becomes a sponsor. That we've got 3 levels of sponsorship, and those folks that are gold and platinum sponsors, they get a commercial on the show. So awesome. Tell us a little bit before we flip gears here. Tell us a little bit about your Focused on Forward podcast and what that kind of framework is like and what it's about.
Okay. So like I said, I started that after my daughter came out of the hospital. I was going to counseling because between some things that happened with my natural father growing up and having some issues with that, and then, growing up and being a teenager and all those issues and a few other things that happened, and then my own health issues, and then what happened with my daughter. I'd kind of ignored a lot of things from my childhood, and some other things, just kind of like suppressed them, repressed them. And then it's amazing when you have one large traumatic event happen in your life that, all these things kind of come, your brain's just like, hey, well, you know what? You know what's more fun than dealing with just one of them? Let's deal with all of them. Yeah. Let's just take them all on.
Right.
And so, and I usually use the expression that my head was a bag of cats. When we came out of the hospital, I was messed up. Talking to my counselor, she said I had something called hospitalization PTSD.
Oh, wow.
Because, you're dealing with that on such a, you're seeing all these things, and and I'll be honest with you, it's been 2 years. I still can't sleep at night unless I have headphones in, because I can't stand to hear anything else around me. Because you get used to hearing different things in the hospital room. The beeping sounds of the machines would send me into a panic attack.
Oh, wow.
And so there's all these different little things that we're having to deal with. And, going to counseling, and I'm talking to my counselor, and she's a wonderful woman. Julie is awesome. And she said, well, she kind of suggested that maybe I do some kind of writing. She says, well, you're kind of an imaginative person. You got some good ideas. Why don't you, start writing, maybe write your life experience, kind of like an autobiography. Or I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I hate writing. She says, well, okay, well, maybe like a blog. I'm like, no, still hate writing.
Still writing.
still writing. It's still not going to happen. I tried the blog route once in my younger years, and I was so sporadic with it that it never really could have taken off.
That's me and you both. Yep.
Yeah. And so she said, well, what do you like to do? I'm like, I can talk. I got people telling me all the time to shut up. I know how to talk. And I started talking with a good friend of mine. His name is Tommy, and Tommy runs a show called the Curiosity Hour podcast, which, if anybody, is interested in listening to a podcast that talks to people about their true, authentic stories and what's going on in their lives and how they got to where they're at. Curiosity Hour podcast with Tommy and Dan. I highly recommend that show. It's what I want Focused on Forward to be when it grows up. Okay. I love the way that they ask their questions, the way they interview their people and everything. So Tommy suggested that maybe I look at making a podcast. And I went, yeah, maybe I could. And so my biggest problem is I didn't want to talk about myself. And talking about myself I'm like, that's going to be a 1 or 2 episode thing. And then people are going to get bored with it, because I'm going to get bored with it. And so talking with my wife, talking with Tommy, a couple other guys, they all said, well, why don't you make it about other people's stories? And so that's what we do. Every week I have somebody who comes on who has had something in their life that they've had to overcome, whether it's something traumatic, whether it's something that they deal with on a day in, day out basis. I've talked to people who have lost their infant children. I've talked to people who have lost their spouse. They're battling cancer. There's addiction issues, sobriety issues. There's, a variety of different things that people have had to overcome and deal with, self-harm and things along those lines. And the thing is, I'm not here administering advice. I'm not having these people on these shows so I can tell them what they can do to fix their situations. I'm not a trained counselor. I'm not going to give people advice on what to do or how to do. I'm talking with them because they have found a way to navigate through this minefield that life has set in front of them. And I want them to share their story, because there might be somebody who's looking on going, I don't know what to do with my day. I don't know what to do with my situation. How do I get through today? Mm-hmm. And if somebody's story that I'm able to help share helps them in that way, man, I'm thrilled. That's what I want. I want to be able to help somebody in that regard, because there was, Tommy's podcast helped me in that way. When I needed it, it was there for me, and gave me a lot of really good information to help me kind of, with some of the stories that people were going through and stuff. And so that's what I wanted for Focused on Forward. And I'm proud to say that I think we're on episode 48 now. I want to say 48. Mm-hmm. So I am honored that 48 people have trusted me with their story. Well, 47, because I was the first one. I can't really say I trusted me with my own story, but yeah, I did the very first episode we did. I called it Our Story, because before and like I say in the episode, I felt obligated to share with people my backstory so that they could have an understanding of where I was coming from and why I was talking to people about what they were going through in life. And it wasn't just, it just wasn't some guy trying to do a podcast, but this was a thing that I was passionate about and that I cared very much for.
Yeah. I liken this whole thing, brother, to how people say that this is my baby, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I really do liken it to that. And you take this thought that's very, very precious, and mm-hmm. you know that you want to nurture it, you want it to grow, as you say, but not just for the sake of growth. You want it to grow a certain way,
right?
And me, that was kind of like my speaking business. I turned down some good speaking opportunities because it wasn't in line with my value system. It was a great gig. It would have been a nice check, but mm-hmm. I don't just speak to speak.
Right.
And so the podcast space and what you've done with Focus on Forward and opening up people to feel safe with you, handing you their vulnerabilities and your audience and bringing them in. Sometimes what I say, Tim, is that I bring people on the show and people think, oh, King's the subject matter expert. No, I bring them on here and I'm like, when I'm finished, I'm like, man, I got helped. Mm-hmm. Just listening to them and it's therapeutic for me too,
Oh yeah. And I often tell my guests that one of the things that I love about having people on my show with all these different things that they've gone through is that this is the cheapest form of therapy that I could ever have. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, because I'm talking to people who have been there, who have done that, who are fighting the fight or have fought the fight and won. Okay. And for me, it's an honor for me to be able to talk to them and hear their stories and share their stories. But it's also helpful to me because when I have my guests on, most of the time what they see is the top of my head, because I got my ink pen and my paper. I'm taking notes on what they've done, and they'll hear me go, "Ooh, I'm going to use that later." Oh man, that sounds really good. I'm going to use that later. And that's the truth. I'm sitting there. I'm learning from the people that I have on the show. I am by no means an expert in any of these fields. I do not have the training to help make diagnoses or prescriptions and none of that. None of that's happening on Focused on Forward.
Right. Yeah.
I am not about to go give somebody some counsel on how to do something or why to do something. I'm going to encourage you to go talk to a counselor. But if there's something that you've done in your life that could help somebody else and you got a cool suggestion on how you manage to work it, let's hear about it, because we can all use that.
That's the truth, man. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to flip the script. We can change hats here for the last 14 minutes or so, probably 12, because we got to do closeout music. But we're going to kind of change reverse roles. I'm going to let him be Tim Beisiegel, the interviewer, and I'm just going to be CL King, the guest, on my own show. So let's see.
All right.
Let's see how this works.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Focused on Forward. Today, we have the privilege of talking with CL King. CL is a public speaker, but he also hosts a show called Impacting Life 24/7. Welcome to the show, CL.
Thank you, Tim. If you forgot what the name of the show was, I was going to tell you, look at the shirt you created, brother.
You want to know what the sad part is?
What?
I did. I looked at your shirt. Oh, yeah, my mind went blank that fast.
I try to take notes, brother, and then sometimes when I even read the notes, I mess it up. So I understand that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, CL, how did you get into podcasting? Why is this such an important space for you?
Well, it is because it wasn't. Let me tell you, it wasn't at first. And the first, what my trade is and what my mission is, I created a 501c3 nonprofit back in 2009 and got on the road with my best friend and vice president of our company, Greg Smith. We have traveled to 240 something different locations throughout the country and around the world, and spoke to almost 500,000 kids and students and parents and all that. And it just exploded. We love it. We love what we do. But in 2019, I realized that I wanted to have another platform because oftentimes as a speaker, you're waiting on the invitations or you're trying to market and all that kind of stuff. You're subject to the other platform. I said, I wanted to have a platform where we could have more say in our messaging. And so we did that. And I didn't know nothing about podcasting. I just remember the iPod. You remember those things? And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe people listen to this on those devices. I don't know. So I said, okay, I looked up, I Googled it. I literally Googled how to start a podcast. And they said, okay, pick this, pick that. Started the podcast. My host platform was not Podbean, which since we've switched, we've downloaded over 1,000 downloads on Podbean when we just switched to them. But I was on this platform called messy.fm. And it just didn't jive with kind of the messaging that I was trying to portray, bro. And it says this podcast was created on Messy. And my wife says, honey, I don't know if that's really kind of fitting the flavor of what you're trying to do. So we did 30 shows or 35 or 40 shows on Messy. And it was everything was free. I was using this free stuff. Everything was free. And it was an absolute train wreck, Tim. I mean, it was a train wreck. I tried to do it live. The first 30 episodes was just me. And I started saying, man, I'm tired of listening to myself. And it was putrid. And so we've kept those, though, because one day they'll be worth a lot of money. those episodes, I'll get rich off of those, probably more than my own podcast. And so when we switched and made some modifications and some enhancements, we started realizing that, hey, man, why don't we make this about others? Why don't we use this to impact other people who have had an impact in their life? And I said, I want people from all different walks, all different scenarios, all different situations. And since then, Tim, from everything you can imagine, from a lady who got her leg severed off in New York City, who was a promising rising vocalist, to a woman who basically gave a stranger her kidney because he needed it. Those are the types of stories that have been on this show, brother. And like I told you, it's been more therapeutic for me than I could have ever been for any of them. And it really has taken hold, man. Nobody was listening, to those 30, 40, 50, 60 probably episodes. But now we have downloads in 11 different countries and 22 states throughout the U.S. And so we're very, very blessed. We're humbled by what God is doing, and we're thankful for it.
Okay. Excellent. So other than your current guest, who has been your favorite guest because of their story, their background?
I like obviously Tim Bicycle is my favorite guest,
there's always that.
Who has been okay?
And that's like asking you which child's your favorite child.
Yeah,
I get it.
You're gonna get me.
And I asked you that because I always get asked that question. I just want to feel like, see what it felt like to ask somebody else.
That's a tough one. My most anticipated.
Let's go with that. All right. What's has been your most anticipated?
Will Kennedy.
Okay.
Because I've watched Will Kennedy, the drummer for the Yellow Jackets. My son is a drummer. I trained my son since he was 2 years old. Got his first drum set when he was 2. We've watched Will Kennedy his whole life. I've watched Kennedy before then. I'm a Yellow Jackets junkie, and I look at him as a superstar. You know what I mean? He sold out concerts all over the world. And so I reached out to him one time and said, hey, man, I'd like to have you on my show. And he said, okay, yeah, I'll get back with you. A year later, I just sent the follow-up email and said, hey, Kennedy, because he knew us from other things that we had sent him because Chris plays a lot of his music. And he said, yeah, I'll come on. I'll come on. And he did. And we booked the date, and I was scared to death because you know how it is. A live show, nothing can go wrong. Because if it does, everybody in the world gonna know about it. There's no editing when it's live.
No, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's raw. But he came on and he was so easy to interview. Some celebrities, have this aloof persona about them, but he was just like talking to me and you, brother. And
that's cool.
It was a life dream for me, for my son, because my son was on the show with me. So my son got to partially interview Will Kennedy, and Will Kennedy said he wants to come back on. So that was probably my most anticipated guest.
All right, excellent. So since we're running short on time here, I'm going to jump ahead in the storyline, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions, the same 2 questions I ask every single guest that's ever been on my show. So first off, looking back over your life experiences, what is the single greatest lesson that you have learned?
Looking back over my life experiences, what has been the single greatest lesson?
Yes.
The message that I speak every time I'm speaking, Tim, and that is no matter the adversity, you still can make it. No matter the adversity. Tim, I was homeless, physically and sexually abused by parents and paid staff in group homes that I was taking care of. I was down and out. I was a child of the system, brother. And every metric was designed and weighted against me. I had absolutely no way that I was supposed to succeed. And my foster mom told me, she said, listen, Chris, you can take all of that you went through and use it to change the world. And she had a belief in me. She had a belief in Chris King. And
that's awesome.
So, no matter how much I went through, no matter the pain, it's still painful to this day at 46, Tim, because I'm writing my book now. And I'm unearthing some of that stuff that was painful and dark and vile, bro.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
But I got a beautiful wife. I got 7 children. I live on a glorious ranch. I do exactly what I want to do in life. I couldn't ask for any more blessings. If I don't get another thing in life, I'm totally okay. I'm blessed. But my foster mom said, don't ever quit. I'm getting ready to give a high school commencement speech. And the title,
awesome.
Y'all listen to this because y'all getting a little sneak peek. The title of this high school commencement speech will be, You're Still Standing.
Nice. That's nice. Yeah, I equate that to a saying that I like to tell people when they say, and actually this just came up in my interview this past Friday. He was talking about, having lived in the ghetto, and he said, well, I'm glorifying the ghetto because I liked this about it, and I liked that about it. And I said, no, you're not glorifying it. You're finding the silver lining.
Right.
And everything we do in life, we have to find a silver lining because there's going to be enough challenges and things. If you don't look for the silver lining, the good things in people, the good things in situations, those things and people and situations are going to get you down. And then, yeah. All right. So here's the second question, very similar to the first question. What is, other than your lesson, what is the single greatest piece of advice that you were given?
The greatest single piece of advice that I was given,
other than your foster mother, you can't double dip.
I can't double dip.
Double dip. No, can't double dip.
That's a good. You should have sent me these questions, but did you work with my handlers to get me these questions beforehand?
Not even close.
Y'all, we freestyling tonight, man. We making it good. The single greatest piece of advice that I have been given,
yes,
excluding my foster mom, right? Well, I can go over on the show since it's my show, so I can take a few seconds to think here.
Well, actually, you're eating into focused on forward time right now.
Oh, okay.
So technically,
okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, since we flipped roles. The greatest piece of advice that I have been given is whatever right is, just do right.
I like that.
Whatever right is, just do right. And that was what kind of guided me to slovenly do a U-turn in our rhetorical flourishes that I created when we were talking through text, and realized that it's not right to just leave this situation like this. Y'all missed it. Y'all got to go back to the beginning and find out Tim and I had a big old fight that I started to start our friendship several weeks ago.
And if you go back to that, you'll find out that if you look back at what I was saying and you read it with sarcastic tone, that's probably how you should have read it. So
and so oftentimes I don't have to be right. I'm a man, I'm a Marine, I'm a father, I'm a leader. I'm usually the keynote speaker, but I don't have to always be right, Tim. I just want to do right.
I like that very much.
Whatever right is, man, just do right. So that's what my greatest piece of advice is.
All right. So one final question. Where can people find you and your podcast?
If they don't know by now, there's a problem, because I'm always promoting. But let me tell you, you would think people would know, but they goes in one ear and out the other. You constantly have to do it. All they got to do to find our podcast, they can go to clkingspeaker.com. We put everything kind of linked right there. That's our website. So if you just go to the podcast tab, you'll be able to see Tim's nice logo that he created for me. And you can click on the link right below it, and it'll take you right to the episodes for you to listen to. And one of the things that we want to do, I'm taking back over my show now, is I want everyone, okay, because y'all gonna see me again tomorrow night, but you won't see Tim for a while. We're gonna come back together, obviously, but I want everybody to go to YouTube. Now, do you have a parent website? Do you have a host website, or are you just using?
I do, but it's not fully set up right now, so I'm not really giving that out.
That's fine. Let's work with Focus on Forward, and you can find that on YouTube. You can find that on all the major podcast outlets. And I would love for you guys to go there and do a couple things. Here's what helps podcasters. And Greg, just give me a few extra minutes on it, and don't charge it just charge it to my account, brother. Here's what podcasters and content creators really appreciate. Go and leave a comment or a review or subscribe. So you can go and subscribe on iTunes, or what's it called now, Apple Podcasts, and all those places. Or you can go and subscribe on YouTube, which is easy for some folks. Heck, I just found out how to leave comments on Apple Podcasts. They didn't make it very easy. So I would love for you to go to Focus on Forward on those platforms, and also the Funny Science. What is it called? Funny Science Fiction.
I'm dropping notes into the conversation here because
Funny Science Fiction, and I would love for you to go there. Please if you reach out to Tim, please tell him how awesome it was to see and hear him on our show. And we kind of came up with this idea because I said, he said, Chris, have anybody ever interviewed you on your own show? I mean, have you ever been able to tell your story? I know they hear me rant and rave a lot, Tim. Sometimes I have to have church with these folks sometimes. But no, I've never been actually interviewed in that capacity. And it was so cool to be able to spend that time with you, brother. You are really a great man and a great friend. And
thank you very much. Likewise.
Not sarcastic at all.
Oh, we got to talk more. So we got to talk more.
No, it's probably good we don't. We just, we'll keep the frequency and duration to what is going on right now.
I like it. He's like, no, we're good. No.
because I mean, I'm still a human. I still got to work on me too, bro.
He's like, yeah, we're done here. Okay.
Yeah, that's just like, okay, that's the music, ladies and gentlemen. And so I've had on my show, and we've had such a great time. What an amazing man! If you need some logo and artwork done, ooh, now that's what I'm talking about. Tim set us up with an amazing store. Where that's how the link that you guys see. He created our new logo. We got everything refreshed, and it just all is. And part of the reason why we were able to do that, Tim, is because of our sponsors, how we were able to pay for it and all that.
Nice.
So we're very, very thankful for our sponsors, but we're also thankful for you. So if you guys need a new graphic, you need a new graphics designer, you just got one right here, dropped in your lap, your virtual lap, right here on Impacting Life 24/7. And Tim Beisiegel is a man that's going to be a friend to Impacting Life 24/7. So you'll see him again. We'll probably have him back on to talk all things Wolverine. And you know what we really need to do? These cats are out here making a killing off of hosting podcast summits. Man, we need to get together and do one, man. Because the stuff I heard them talking about is like, okay, we get it. We can do that. But they was charging $105 a person to go virtually.
Mm-hmm.
Virtually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, man.
Yeah, there was one that wanted me to participate, and it was like $300 a person because it was a multi-day summit. And I'm like,
I'm good.
No.
Yeah, I'll just keep messing up, and then I'll make my own summit off of all the mess ups and become a multi-millionaire. So
we call it the how not tos.
Hey, for all of y'all that don't want to have a podcast, come to our summit. We'll help you.
Tell you what not to do.
Yeah. So, Tim, I really appreciate you, man. And
I appreciate you having me on. This has been a lot of fun. Really, truly
has. Yeah. And I knew that after I made up and told you what an idiot I was, that our friendship was going to be great. And that's usually the way it is. So if there's anything that you need from me or from our family, our Impacting Life 24/7 audience, we definitely will support you 100% of the way.
Likewise.
And anytime you want to tag me on stuff you got going on, brother, because I see your stuff, I see your TikToks and all the stuff. Anything we can do to promote, that's what we'll do, bro.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So just go take care of your lovely family, and we will be back together again real soon. Okay, Tim?
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you again soon. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's Impacting Life 24/7, episode 1 of the week. And we've got tomorrow night. We will be right back here in the studios. You guys know how this works. Monday night, Tuesday night, and Thursday night. But I think this Thursday, I'm trying to work with our Thursday night guest to see if I can squeeze her in on Wednesday. Because, like I said, I'm going to be indisposed. Kids are like, you mean you got mom and dad are leaving without taking us? Absolutely. Y'all grown. What do you mean? They always go everywhere else without taking me and my wife. Where are you going? Oh, we're spending the week. We're going here. We're going. What about us? And then we cook these big old dinners. Nobody's ever home to eat them. So I said, you know what? Y'all grown folk. Y'all grown folk. Y'all all got jobs. Y'all all are resourceful. We feel comfortable leaving y'all. Just no house parties, and don't burn my house down, okay? Because it's not paid for yet. All right, so we will be back here tomorrow night, 8:30 with Colleen Mitchell, and Colleen Mitchell is going to be discussing about going forward. And talking about inspirations on forwardness. And here's why, because she was a type 1 diabetic for over 25 years, and she's helping more people get understanding of what type 1 diabetes is. So this is going to be a very, very informative show. Saw her on the podcast collab group, and her passion about this topic is really riveting. And so she's changed her life. She's living with it. She's a life coach, a podcaster, an author, speaker, and a full-time engineer and analyst in the power industry. And so she's had a lifetime of dealing with this, and she's going to give us some education. She's going to help you understand some things about it. She's a wife and she's a cat mom and all that, but she also helps people with understand chronic illnesses and how to live with their conditions and not allow their conditions to control them. And that's something, man, because oftentimes you see some folks, they succumb to the conditions, and just like the folks that I had on a couple weeks ago, Javi and his wife, Javi had dealing with heart issues for 18 years. And he learned that it was what he was putting in his mouth that could change the course of, reversing the stents that were clogged up, getting those unclogged by changing his diet and his way of living. So we bring people on here like that have an impactful story to tell you. And obviously we're not medical folks on here, even though I'm a master life coach and all that. That's not our goal. You need to consult with your physicians. But man, I also love, y'all go watch a movie when someone tell you about it. You know what I mean? You go eat at a restaurant when someone tell you about it. So sometimes it is our words. The Bible says we've been made overcomers by the words of our testimony. Sometimes I just need to hear somebody tell me what they went through and how they overcame it. And I'd be like, you know what? I can do that too. All right, Greg, are you already in bed eating Captain Crunch? So our show has really been, it's been a blessing, y'all. And every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring people on here that have an impact. If you'd like to become a sponsor, we'd love to have you. I'd love to have you as a sponsor. And all you got to do is go to clkingspeaker.com. There's 3 levels of sponsorship. We tell you what the levels are for. It's $1, $5, and $15 a month. You choose one, and we're connected in helping us move this mission. Greg has not gone to bed yet, but he's probably going to eat his Captain Crunch. We've got a big thing coming up, a big announcement coming up with Greg and the mission that he is doing for a young lady who desperately needs a kidney transplant. So we're going to be doing a special show with some of the partners that are helping with this initiative. There's a big day coming up in New Bern, North Carolina, with one of our show guests that have been on, the 9 Limb Strikers folks. They're going to help host a whole day, a fundraiser for this young lady, this dear sweet young lady, Jacqueline, who is in desperate need of a kidney transplant. So more about that. I think we're probably going to be doing that next Wednesday as a special show on Impacting Life 24/7. Until then, we will see you tomorrow night right back here, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Impacting Life 24/7 with your host, CL King.